Hello. Today we're going to take a few of the more challenging poses and make them a little bit more accessible, or doing them in stages. We're going to do gate pose, Parigasana, hare pose, Shashankasana, and lizard, Uttan Prasthasana. So for gate pose, we're going to start in a kneeling position, just taking a few deep breaths, maybe bringing our arms overhead with an inhale, and breathe out, bringing the arms down, and do that 2 more times. Deep breath in, and release, and one last time. Deep breath in, and release. We're going to come up onto our knees. If you need to, you can also have a pillow anytime we're on our knees in case there's any pain or discomfort. And we're going to bring our left foot out to the side. And there's a few different options here. If you start to feel that the ankle doesn't feel right in this position, we'll add a few other possibilities. And just making sure that your hip is in line with your knee. And keeping that leg straight. I'm going to just take a deep breath in and bring our arms to either side, reaching out to either wall. Deep breath in, and then release, and come down wherever your hands come naturally. It could be on the shin. If that's not comfortable, you could bring it on the thigh. You just want to avoid the knee. And you could also have a block and just bringing it down onto the block. I'm just going to hold this for a breath or two. You can look up at your fingertips or a spot on the ceiling. If that hurts your neck at all, you can look straight ahead or even look down at your bottom foot. If this hurts your ankle at all, you could also bring your foot up so it's just your heel, or tilt your foot in a little bit. Just do what feels right for your body. And then we could also just add something a little extra here. And as we come up, I'm going to breathe in and then breathe out, and maybe come down to the other side. Do a little counter stretch. Breathe in, breathe out, and just making it a little flow. Breathe in, breathe out. Maybe even going a little further. Or we could change it into a bit of a modified half moon pose. Making sure to keep your core nice and strong. Hold this for a few breaths and bring it down and come right back over into gate pose. And you could hold it straight up here. You could also opt to maybe stretch it a little further if that's what feels right for you. Being sure to make sure your shoulders aren't crunched up by your ears. Just take a breath into your shoulders and bring them down. I'm going to do one more time over, holding here, and you could also use the block here as well. And coming up. And back down. Coming back into a kneeling position. Maybe come down a little bit, take another breath, relax your legs, relax your shoulders, and one more breath. And release. Coming back up onto your knees, bringing your right foot out, pointing towards the other wall. Bringing your hands up so they're parallel to the floor, reaching your fingertips out as if you're trying to reach either wall, and then bringing your hands down where they naturally fall, where your right hand naturally falls. Looking up at your fingertips or point on the ceiling. If it's uncomfortable for your neck, you can look straight ahead or down at your foot or on the floor. Just making sure to avoid that knee, and then bringing it up, and maybe doing a little counter, coming down to the other side, looking up at your right hand, And just do a little flow. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And this time we're just going to hold it here again. And you could also modify with that foot if the pointing the toe brings too much pressure. You bring it up on your heel or bring your foot in. And come back up. And you could also maybe add a little bit of a stretch for the groin, coming down, sitting on your heel. Coming back up into kneeling, and one last breath. From here, we're going to do hare pose. This one's a little bit more of a challenge. I just started doing it in the last few days. So you want to start in a kneeling position and then going into a child's pose. I usually like to do a wide angle child's pose, so I'm going to do that first and then do the knees together. So just sliding down into child's pose. Taking a few deep breaths. Maybe even doing a puppy pose, sliding forward with your hips up, reaching your fingertips to the wall in front of you. And sliding it back down or walking it back down. Bringing your knees together. And then first just bringing your hands in front of you. Relaxing your head, relaxing your shoulders, taking a deep breath. Release all the way. And then bringing your hands down by your sides with your palms face up. And just relax here for another breath. Notice if there's any tension in your shoulders. And then we're going to come up. We have a few options here. So what we'd like to do is having our knees directly under our hips and then aiming to bring our head right in front of our knees. I'm not quite there yet myself, so mine's going to be about 6 inches ahead. So bringing it straight down with the crown of your head, not your forehead, the crown of your head on the floor. And at first you can just use your hands for a little bit of additional support. And then when you're ready, and if you don't feel like you're crunching up, you can bring your hands to either side of your legs. If it's accessible for you, you can reach for your heels or your ankles or your calves. Otherwise, it's totally fine to just let your arms completely relax. Take a few breaths, and then when you're ready, you can come up and come into kneeling. So another option is to have a pillow either under your knees or under your head. So we can bring that same thing, taking a deep breath and bringing the crown of your head onto the pillow. You can adjust it if you need to. And it should be a pretty small pillow, nothing too high to put stress on your neck. And then bringing your hands down by your sides. And just notice what you feel in your body. And release. And you could also use the pillow under your knees. If you have a hair tie, you might want to move that out of the way. And that is hare pose. Finally, we have lizard. We have a few different options that we can do for this one. And always remember one side might be a little tighter than the other. It's common We tend to do things more strenuously on one side than the other than we realize, or we tend to lean to the side or something like that. So just to be ready that it might be tighter on one side than the other. So we're going to start with downward dog. Well, first we're going to start with table, going into downward dog. And we just kind of walk our dog a little bit, loosen up the hamstrings and the hips. And then maybe sink into it a little bit further, making sure to take your breaths. And then taking your right foot and bringing it straight up. And then bringing it down in between your two hands. And if you need to, you can walk your foot up, inch it up with your toes, or actually bringing it up. I have to do that on my other side. So first it's a high runner's lunge. You want to make sure that your knee is at a 90-degree angle. And then bringing both hands inside so that your hand is on the inside of your right foot. And then just keep that back foot active. You don't want to hyperextend the knee. And maybe looking in between your two hands or in the space just above it. And then if this feels good, stay here. If it doesn't feel good on your knee, bringing your knee down to the floor or having it on a pillow. You might need to readjust, see where the stretch feels better in there. Taking another deep breath. And if it's comfortable, you can stay up on your hands. If it's not, you can come down onto your elbows. I mean, if it's comfortable in either direction, you can stay here if this feels better. And if you feel the elbows are better, you can come down here. If you're almost there, and you just want to experience the elbows, you can use your block, maybe 2 blocks. And just make sure that you're not over-rounding your shoulders. You can also bring that knee out a little bit, pressing your knee away, maybe coming up onto the pinky toes side of your foot. Maybe you can bring your left hand down and bringing your right hand to the hip crease. Maybe bringing it around the back. And maybe pointing it at the back wall. Looking at your hand if it feels comfortable. And then bringing it back up. And then we're going to stay up on our hands, curling the toes on the back foot and coming up. You can stay here for a moment. If it feels comfortable and you want to try to do the bind, we can. You can just shift that foot around a little bit. And I can do it better on this side than the other side. Going to tuck your shoulder under and bringing your hand, I don't know if you can see my hand up there, bringing your hand back if it's comfortable, and then bringing the other hand behind. And then coming back down. If the bind does not happen, it's not a worry at all. It's not necessary for the practice. And then we're just going to come back. I'm just going to come back into a kneeling pose and then going into child's pose. And then coming back into table, into downward dog, taking a deep breath in, walking your dog, and then bringing your left foot straight up in the air and bringing it in between your two hands. Now I cannot get anywhere close on my left side, so I'm going to walk it up with my hand. Having, at first, the hands are on either side of the foot. I'm going to bring that left hand on the inside and walk the left foot out a little bit. Taking a deep breath in and sinking into the stretch. Make sure that your shoulders aren't coming up by your ears. That tends to happen. And if it's comfortable, you can stay up here. For me, it's better to come down onto my knee and flatten that back foot. You can stay here, or you can come down onto your elbows. pressing that left leg into your left arm, or use the block. And you can also pretend, if you only have one block like me, you can also just pretend and have your arms straight here. And then I'm gonna come back, make sure to breathe, and then you can tilt that left leg out a little bit, maybe help it along with your hand. Maybe coming up onto the pinky toes, side of your foot. You can just keep your hand here on the hip crease, maybe looking behind you, maybe just draping your hand behind you here, or bringing your hand back and looking at your backhand, your fingers, or a point on the wall. Taking a deep breath, and bringing it back. And then this time, we'll try another option, coming up onto those back toes, and then coming back into downward dog. One last time, down onto your knees, and into child's pose. Thank you for joining me today.